Welcome back to Not Alone with Melissa Sue Methvin. Like always, I love to start with one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly and start breathing with me. We're going to start in through the nose and out through the nose. So you can start with me. Inhale for 3 and exhale for 5. Let's do that a few more times. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose. Now that's better. I always love to start where we can be in a heart coherence, calm our nervous system, because today's episode is going to change the way you think, literally. Have you ever... Hold on. You cut it there. I was like, oh, okay. Have you ever noticed how one thought can completely change how your body feels? One memory pops up and your chest tightens. One worry and your gut feels so nauseous. One fear and your energy drops. I have walked through grief, anxiety, inflammation, and healing, and I have learned something powerful. Our thoughts are so connected to how our body feels and reacts. Our thoughts speak to every cells of our body. Today's guest, Lea Llovio, works in that space with top thought leaders, doctors, celebrities. She blends biology, beliefs, the thoughts, all intertwined, interconnected, because those are all so powerful for us to live in such vitality. So I am honored to call her a friend, and she is here live today with me. And this aligns so much with my book, The Truth Behind the Smiles and the Gut-God Connection, because I talk about how suppressed emotions led me to have acid reflux, to have so many different kind of ailments, and for my husband to suppress his emotions and die by suicide. So as I got more curious, I realized how important our thoughts are. And today I brought the #1 expert. She speaks all over the world on health platforms, and I'm just deeply honored. So welcome, Lea, for being here today. I'm tremendously grateful.
Melissa, it's my pleasure to be here with you. And, I'm so grateful that the universe connected us and for the work that you're doing and how you turned your suffering into providing a blessing for the world. And really, I feel that is what it's all about, where we can really use our own life to plant our little seeds of blessings and use our thoughts, our actions, and our words to really try to be a blessing in some way to the world that supports us, and to these extraordinary bodies that carry us through this life.
Yes, well, thank you. I do, because the more I got curious about the whys of why I couldn't reach my husband when he was such a dark place, and how someone so bright, so intellectual, generous and kind could fall into that darkness. So can you explain to me how one negative thought that constantly spirals into your mind affect your nervous system?
Yes, and taking one's life, that is the extreme, right? That is the ultimate loss of control of the thoughts. That's the ultimate trigger, per se. And I know that word trigger can be triggering, no pun intended, but the thoughts create chemical reactions in the body, in the brain. Now, first we have to understand everything starts with a thought, right? As much as we want to master our emotions and how we act in the world by sheer will is important, grit is important, but we have to master the thoughts first with baby steps. Because if we don't master those thoughts through baby steps, then we are just a result of all that has happened to us. And it even starts in the womb, right? Some people, their parents maybe were drinking when they were in the womb, or they were fighting a lot. All of these things are part of what's creating those cells, that fetus that eventually becomes a human being.
Because the fetus can literally feel what's around them as
100%. Well. And everything that we are is energy. And it doesn't have to be woo, for example. It literally is energy, right? You know that when you consume food, they call calories energy. So everything is energy, and we start by being a particle, and eventually we become these extraordinary human beings. But in the meantime, while we are becoming this human that we are, there were thoughts that were put into that process. And it even starts, why are you here? Well, at some point you had a male and female that had thoughts about each other, right? We can make it very practical. And those thoughts created chemical reactions in them of excitement, of interest, of love. These became strong emotions. They came together and they procreated more extraordinary, beautiful life. But it did start with a thought. And so everything does start with a thought, and it does physiologically affect the body. We can talk about that it's a chemical reaction, and we can look at the practical side of it. So there's never anything that anyone does in life that did not stem from a thought. And even when we look at trauma, for example, one may say, well, you're carrying all that trauma in your body, and that is true. But how can we remove the trauma from the body? We have to start with the thought and the acknowledgement that, hey, I experienced this trauma. Now I have to decide, am I going to be that person that for the rest of my life is the result of my trauma? Or am I going to look at what were those initial little thoughts that were implanted in me from, it could be before birth or after birth, that are not serving me, that are creating those feelings of anxiety or of life is not worth living. So there is that part of the thought process, and diving a little bit more into that, because I think it's so important, especially for the work that you do, of when a person gets to a point of depression that literally there was no more desire, there was no brain chemistry that helped them to keep holding on and living. We have to address not only the thoughts, but we also have to address the physical body, right? We have to tackle our traumas from all areas. So mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And if we neglect one, especially when there's something severe, this is when we don't stand a chance. Sometimes when the trauma is very severe, where it's to that point of suicidal tendencies or a depression that's so severe that keeps people hiding at home and not living life, we have to use all of the tools at our disposal.
Yeah, this is so good. I love the way you explain it, because that's where I saw it. It was just so severe that any communication was kind of blocked. It was like a wall. I couldn't get through that wall. And that's why I want people to not get that far. Start noticing the signs before nobody can almost reach you, it seems like. And I love that it's the physical as well, because what are they putting in their body when they're in that state? What are they eating? What are they watching? It just kind of continues that spiral of the dark. And because I noticed the more he dove into kind of depression, the more he drank, the more there was pornography, the more there was just everything we watched was just so much fear. There was paranoia, there was more drugs, more of everything. And so I think he was just so depleted of that light inside him, and it made it really hard to reach. And I know it all started from avoidance and suppression of his childhood. You know, I know he had shared a lot about his childhood and had never wanted to address it. And so just becoming aware and wanting to see it, because oftentimes we just want to push it away. We don't want to go there. And we think maybe if we push it away, it won't affect us. But what you're saying, that it is in our body, and we almost have to dive deep, you know, like go scuba diving in the dark, dark ocean, and we have to go see it to get out back to the light. You know, we have to address it. And how would you tell someone to address it? Because you don't want to relive these traumas. How would you say, what do they need to do with it so it just doesn't affect their body in a toxic way anymore? How can they do that?
Well, the first thing that is essential for any of us to do is to be our number one fan, our number one self-observer, our number one stalker. What does it mean to be your number one fan? If you are somebody's fan, you are going to be rooting for them. And if you were the head of the fan club for yourself, you would be making sure that you do absolutely everything to make this extraordinary idol of yourself look great all the time, feel great all the time, make sure they have everything that they need to succeed, right? So we all live in a world with a lot of busy people, and most people have an extraordinary heart. They are very good, and they're here to serve humanity. But most people are very, very busy, right? So we have to take the time to give ourselves the resources that we need to thrive and to be our best self. We need to observe ourselves all of the time. So if we are realizing at some point in time, you're like, oh, wow, I'm being very reactive. I'm being very snappy. I'm feeling really insecure. You know, I'm canceling appointments because I feel too insecure to go. I mean, this is what happens when people have severe anxiety and depression. You know, some of the people that you know that are always canceling, sometimes we think they're flaky. They might be suffering tremendous anxiety and depression, and maybe they actually really wanted to go and spend time with you, but they're just suffering so much that they keep canceling. Now, the world can help us, but we are the only ones that are with our own self all of the time. And we are the only ones that is with us from the time we have consciousness until the last moment of consciousness, at least in this physical body at this time, for this lifetime. So we must constantly be stalking our thoughts. Stalking our thoughts is great, you know, but you have to catch yourself, right? Every time you're canceling these appointments, every time you didn't show up for something that could really move the needle in your life and make your life better. It's important that's where you take those deep dives and say, okay, I'm noticing this. How can I shift this thought processes? How can I take the action even though I'm feeling insecure? Even though I'd rather go hide under the covers, even though I'd rather go home and just drink or take some, you know, sleeping pills. We have to observe ourselves all of the time. Number one is noticing, always noticing. But this is what's really important, noticing with kindness, noticing with sweetness, giving yourself ultimate radical self-acceptance, ultimate love, because no one else in the world can do that for you. And it's not that the world doesn't want to. I'm sure all of us would love to spend our time rooting for everyone, loving everyone, building everyone up. It's a wonderful way to live, and it actually raises your serotonin and dopamine levels every time you do that. But again, we each have to take care of our own side of the street. We have to take care of these sacred vessels. So one of the things that really helps is, number one, the observation of the thoughts, really noticing what thoughts am I having that make me do the things I want to do in life that I know are good for my life and for others, and what are the thoughts that I'm having that are interfering with me taking action to actually do something good for myself.
Kind of like self-sabotaging, right?
Exactly.
So
Self-sabotaging. You know, a lot of people call it self-sabotaging.
Yeah. I like that. I like that because I'm definitely in that right now. I'm so self-aware, and I'm observing my patterns. I always recommend people to journal, start observing, like, or these little triggers. Why am I being triggered? Why did I react that way? And pause. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from because of that little girl that had no parents to take care of her? You know, and so I becoming to study myself. I really am studying my behaviors and my triggers so then I could become a better version of me. And I'm not carrying things from generations too, because I know I could be carrying things from generations on my mom's side or my father that I'm carrying. And I don't want to carry anymore as I rise and I want to grow. So I've got to let these go. But to let them go, I've got to be able to observe them, to be aware. So I love that you're saying that, to study yourself. You know, instead of always picking other people, oh, this person should be eating better. This person should be doing this.
Yeah.
You know, start looking at you, start looking at you. And I think that's such a great advice, because self-realization and observing will give you kind of where you want to be, you know, and what's blocking you.
I think one of the keys that you just mentioned there, which stop there for a sec. I think one of the keys you just mentioned there is asking, is this my programming? And, you know, programming is essential in life because everyone is programmed. We are programmed from the time we are born, right? They program what time we should be drinking our milk, what time we should be sleeping, when we should get burped. Then as you become a toddler, they're programming when you should start walking. And then we get programmed on how we should behave in society. So we had no control over that part. But as we become adults and as we become fully responsible for ourselves, and as we realize, okay, I had this programming that may be responsible for all that I feel, all that I think, and all that I do to this day. I'm going to start reprogramming myself now. I'm the captain now. This is so important. And this is where that not too tight, not too loose, that equanimity comes in. But I do want people to have a grip and have some grit and have a strong will and have a little bit of fire in their belly and say, no, that was how I was programmed. I'm reprogramming myself now. I'm in charge now. And how do we get someone to get to that point? Because there's people that don't feel they deserve it.
Yes.
Especially you were talking about like the generational stuff. Wait a minute. People ask themselves, my grandmother didn't get that, my mother didn't get that, my father didn't get that, my cousins don't have that. Do I get to have this? And there's that generational trauma and that generational blockage that, again, we have to shift that. How do we shift that? By realizing that if we do elevate ourselves and we do self-realize and we do clear out those traumas and we do reprogram ourselves, when we do that, that is not a selfish thing. That is the greatest service we can give to humanity. The greatest service that we can give is to clear the generational trauma, to say enough is enough, but you can only start with yourself. And this is where, just like you were saying about looking at how the other person's eating or what they're doing with their life, there is nothing we can do about what anyone else is doing. The only one we can change, elevate, and improve is ourselves. And what we're doing when we do that is we're modeling. We're creating a new level for our generations. We're creating new programming. And just like if you are in a family that has a very bad diet, for example, or does a lot of drinking, if you're the one aunt or the one sister or the one person that comes to the party and you bring some healthy food with you.
That's me.
Yes, me too. I bring my food everywhere. They're like, wait a minute, Aunt Melissa, she brings like this healthy food and look how great she's doing in life. So now you've just modeled an example that, hey, it's okay to take care of yourself.
Yeah, actually, I could think back just for this past weekend. I went on a ski weekend in Vail, and there was one night, everybody was going out late that night. And I was like, no, I put a premium on sleep. I really do. And for my kids too. We're going to ski all day the next day. So I was like, no, I'm staying in. But I felt, you feel like kind of guilty. Everyone's going out. They probably should. We're in Vail. But I was like, no, my kids were in bed by 8:30. I was in bed by 9. I felt fantastic the next day. And it's kind of it's okay to put a premium. I know how I feel when I have good rest and I'm rested and my kids are rested. Everything flows beautifully the next day.
Absolutely. Everything works better.
Yes.
This is so funny because I'm very blessed that my husband can travel with me a lot to the conferences that I go to. And so for him, when he's with me, he knows we're going to eat early. We're going to try to find something healthier. And after years and years, the other day we had an early dinner, like my preference, which is like 4 or 5 p.m. Like the earlier the better. And the next day he was like, oh my gosh, I've never slept so well in my life. And so I've never said to him, hey, you should eat like me, you should eat early, never. It's just we do the behavior that we know is better for our health. And then we hope that at some point, it might stick with someone else. So it's never just for ourselves. Every time you do something to elevate your own health, your own wellness, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, you're elevating everything and everyone around you. It's just like if you go to the store and someone's really rude. If you are not in tune with yourself, you might get your day ruined. You might be like, oh, that person was rude, But if you are in control of yourself and your thought processes, you might actually say something really nice to that rude person, and you may shift their day.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm always like, kill him with kindness.
Yes.
I'm always like, okay, somebody's not, in a bad mood. I know the distance, I could feel it. And I'm always like, okay, just a little space, but also give them some kindness, give them some love, or pray for them. I love that you explain this because I see it to put an importance for the next generation. Like for me, I'm, of course, the fear that one of my child, because they say generationally it passed down, addiction, suicide. So that stuck with me a little bit. I didn't sit in the fear, but of course it came up because after my husband died, my son tells me he doesn't want to be around anymore. My daughter felt the same way. So there was this heaviness. So my curiosity became because for the next generation. And I love that you say that because if one person in a family decides to shift, maybe, okay, another family member decides to do the same protocols or the same diet changes and the same health behaviors. And so if we start spreading that globally, we can shift generations to come. I'm not doing this just for now.
Right.
This is generation. I want globally for us to shift and to spread this awareness because it's not talked enough. Because I'm very much into health as well, I met you at a biohacking event and so but I love intertwining both spirit and mind because I know optimizing your temple, there are tools out there for that too. And it's so important for that vitality. And I'm just really curious. So as far as the physical and even biohacking, how, as much as you do the consciousness and the thought, what else do you find has really helped optimize? And maybe this is where I get confused because you don't want to quiet down the body signals, right? Sometimes the body speaks and you don't want to quiet them down, but there are tools out there that can help with the inflammation and the brain fog and your clarity. And so I'd love to hear from your own expertise, and I know you're very much in the health industry and you speak at all these events. What do you think are great tools for people that they can integrate?
You ask the best questions. And I love that you talked about, how as a mother, these were your concerns. So let's break down, again, generational, whether it's emotional, mental, spiritual, or even physical illness, right?
What I teach is conscious wellness, and conscious wellness is the dance between scientific medicine and spiritual medicine, and we never separate the two. And all science is actually sacred. So I really invite people to understand the physical body as the sacred vessel for the spirit and the soul, because we do sometimes have a little bit of a war between, which it doesn't make sense, but we do sometimes, between, if I'm a very elevated, high consciousness person with an extreme spiritual practice, I should just be able to master my physical body and not really worry about it. And look at the monks in Tibet, But the monks in Tibet don't live in a city, right, and are not surrounded by, the smog and the toxins that we're surrounded by. So we tackle this wellness from all levels. It is 100% important to really elevate the physical body. And, I always say I want people to be very ambitious. Be very ambitious about optimizing your physical body. Be very ambitious about optimizing all of your thoughts, not only about your traumas and your spiritual life and your personal relationships, but your thoughts about your physical wellness. What we have seen is that there are people that have all of the hacks, that have all of the resources in the world and can do all of the physical optimization. But if their thoughts about the physical optimization are that it's difficult or it's a struggle or I've got these genetics and that's going to block me, these protocols don't work as well for them. So the way we look at, I think it's important to definitely do genetic testing, 100%. Find out what genes you have. Find out the things that you need to pay attention to. Learn about the history of your, grandmother, your grandfather, and your father. And absolutely, if there was mental illness, that is a signal to say, wait a minute, that could be there. So maybe I am going to pay more attention to brain chemistry, for example. And some of the things that definitely affect brain chemistry is literally what you put in your mouth. Yeah. I have seen people get off of depression medication. And I'm not against the medication, by the way. I believe people need to use what they need to use as their tools as long as they need to. But not forget that what we consume every single day, whether it's through our mouth, through our eyes, through our ears, or our environment, are also affecting the chemistry not only in our brain, but in the cells of our body. We all have symptoms. If you travel, you go to a restaurant, yes, you're used to having your healthy, normal diet at home, but you went to a restaurant and suddenly you have a migraine the next day.
Oh, yes. Oh, I noticed it instantly.
Right?
With seed oils, especially, because I try and avoid them. I get headaches right
Exactly.
away. Mm-hmm.
So why is scientific medicine so sacred? Because guess what? You have tools now. For example, you're going to travel. You're not going to stop your life and go live in a cave, yes, unless you want to, which is perfectly fine. But if you're going to participate in life, this is where we bring in the scientific tools. This is where you maybe bring something that helps with gluten to your dinner, because it's very important to have these relationships and be able to spend time with people that we love. So some of the things that I personally have optimized and I've seen really help my clients optimize is, number one, is the diet, right? That's the easiest one to do because you're going to eat every day. And so the things that you do every single day, just like the thoughts that you have every single day, this is what's really affecting everything that's happening in your body. In fact, there are people that try certain protocols, certain peptides, certain medications, devices, and suddenly they say, that one didn't work for me. But they're not incorporating the whole package. They're not also optimizing their diets. They're not eliminating, refined sugar and processed food and toxins. And there's not too much that we can control, but there's a lot we can control, right? We can't control everything outside, but we can control when we're at home, what we eat. We can control what we look at, what we listen to, and what we think, and the people that we spend our time with. Yes. And all of these affect our physical body. Everything, again, comes from a thought that creates a chemical reaction in the brain That creates the emotion. You feel the emotion, it's going to make you want to take an action or not take an action. You take the action, now you've created energy. And that energy literally affects the cells in your body. It affects everything that you do. That energy affects, it's not just on a mystical wavelength, it's also on a physical wavelength. It also creates frequencies in your body. And it affects the people that you're around as well. Especially you would know that because you're a mother. Yes.
Oh, I see it a lot with if I'm off and my energy's off, then it just spirals to my kids. And then, fights happen. And so I've now practiced so much more self-awareness and not being reactive as well. When they're trying to trigger me, when they know, oh, I'm going to ask mom this question 100 times and I'm going to stay patient. I have to really be mindful. I'm like, maybe they're tired. Have they eaten? Have they properly? I've noticed nutrition so much with my kids and certain supplements that because I did do a MTHFR gene test. I want to do more testing for them because I'm playing around with certain things, supplements for them, because I'm seeing a shift when they're depleted and sleep and their nutrition is off because we've had a weekend with sleepovers and birthdays and full of sugar. Oh my gosh, the rage, the meltdowns. So I see it in just my own household, and that's why I'll be at the sporting events and I'm bringing their own thing. I trade them off with like my own drinks, electrolytes instead of the Gatorades and all of that, because I put it in importance because I see their brain activity. I see how it's affecting my kids. And for me as well, I notice that if my energy is low and I'm anxious, I'm stressed, it really has a ripple effect for them, especially my kids. And so I have to really work on me. And a lot of time for a parent, you feel really guilty to go maybe take a little vacation by yourself, go up in the mountains, go somewhere, do journal, do nothing. That's really hard for most people because we're used to stay busy and be givers and give our time. But we need to replenish. We need to, so then we can show up for our loved ones the way we want. I know back then when we're working 5 days a week and you're coming home, then you cook dinner and then you spiral and you are just not so present for your family. And so slowing down for me and feel okay with that took a lot of work. Took a mindset shift, like I'm not doing enough. Should be more productive. And I'm definitely more one that I feel more productive the more I'm doing and using my hands and moving. And so sitting in prayer and in meditation and in breath was hard to say, okay, it's okay to spend that 30 minutes every morning, because then I see a shift. I see a shift in all aspects of my life, in how the more I find stillness and space, the more things flow beautifully into my family. And so this is why there's such an importance to talk about that. And I really appreciate your expertise in that and the way you explain it. And so I want people to put an importance in getting to know, to shift their minds and their thoughts and start noticing it. Start journaling. Why is that thought keep coming up? Like I'm not worthy, or I'm not, like so many people compare themselves, right? They compare themselves, especially I find that in siblings. I think of my kids or any adults that have siblings, they compare themselves nonstop to their siblings and how that keeps them stuck for a lifetime.
That's true. Yeah, and that's great that you've found the way to take those 30 minutes for yourself. And as you were mentioning, so many people are very, very busy. And this is why we start with small actions. And this is why we start controlling the small things that we can control. Most people don't have the 30 minutes, right? So this is where we start with 5 minutes or 3 minutes. And the morning time is so important, even just to take 3 minutes. Usually I ask people to, take 3 breaths, think of 3 things you're grateful for, 3 intentions that you have for yourself, and 3 intentions that you have on how you want to serve humanity. And it goes a little bit further than that. The whole thing takes about 5 minutes. But the reason why we do this is because you can't always get away. You can't always take that little trip or that little vacation by yourself or go to that retreat. So we need things that we can do every single day that can anchor us throughout the chaos of each day. The other 3 things, and this is where the anchor comes in, is every morning decide, who do you want to be to yourself? Who do you want to look at in the mirror at the end of the day and at the end of your physical life? Who do you want to be to your family, to those close to you, to your children, to your spouse, to your friends, to your siblings? And then who do you want to be to those that you have the blessing to serve, whether it's your employees, the people that you work with, the people that you serve in your business? And I ask people to choose 3 words, 1 for each of those as anchor words. And then ultimately 1 word for yourself that is your anchor word. And what you do is throughout the day, when everything gets chaotic, when the kids have had too much sugar the whole weekend, or you haven't had enough sleep, or, in many cases, this is the same whether you're a very high profile person, like some of the, politicians or celebrities that I work with, that people are coming at them all day long. They've got people loving them and hating them. What do you do with all that? That reaction in the body is the same as to whether your sister's not talking to you because you didn't go to the one birthday party she invited you to, or whether the whole world is saying that, your acting is terrible, or you can't sing, or you're the worst politician on the planet. The reaction in the body is the same. It's a stressor. It's too much cortisol. It's too much adrenaline at one time. And it creates the same emotions in the body of inadequacy, of everybody hates me, of things just don't work out. So this is why we have this morning practice, because throughout the day, when these things are coming at you, you've got your anchor words that you go back to. And these things, that only takes 30 seconds. And it's just having like a little signal to yourself throughout the day that, wait a minute, no, I decided that my word is compassion. And that word could even change every day. And you anchor back to that. Or maybe the word is I'm enough,
Oh, I love that.
Or not alone.
Yeah, not alone. I think that's so important that you're giving people tools that are just a few minutes, right? Because a lot of people put time as I don't have the time. So you want it to be easy, small wins throughout the day, and to help their nervous system along for the day. And so these tools, they don't cost anything. They're available to everybody. They are only a few minutes. And this could change the whole life and the way they feel in their body. I'm curious because sometimes I feel, very deeply and energy. And sometimes when I'm around somebody, I could feel there's so much, they're just in either a lot of fear or there's just so much anxiety. I'm like, I slow down my breath a little bit. And it's just really hard for me to be around, but I love them. How do I get it not to affect me as much? I've practiced where I just kind of slow down my breath because I feel it so intently. Do you have a tool for that? Because
Yes.
I struggle with that. And sometimes that's why I recluse myself, or I won't go out as much with whoever those people are, because I'm like, that energy is so intense.
Yes, I know this about you. I can see that because you're a very caring person and you have a very open heart and you're very empathetic. And when people have that, they feel other people's energy. This happens a lot for, medical practitioners, anyone in wellness, and just average people as well. Some of us can really tune in to other people's energy and feel what they're feeling. And sometimes it could be much to our detriment because we don't know how to manage all of that energy, all of those emotions. So yes, the tools that can work for this, and everyone is different, is one, really deciding who it's worth being around. right? If you're going to serve, then there is a spiritual contract that you must learn to manage your thought processes, your emotions, and your energy. This is a spiritual contract. If you are put in certain situations over and over again, there's another spiritual contract that is saying, there's something you really need to look at here. There's something you need to learn from this situation. And it might not be that you're doing anything wrong. It might just be telling you, listen, you are a person with a lot of sensitivity, so we need to use that to be a blessing in the world. And so the tools are cloaking, okay? This is very simple. And it's doing some sort of a visualization that you find symbolizes a protection circle around you. And usually, you know, some people literally love to imagine a cloak around them. Some people, which I love this, tune into the sun. You don't have to go outside for the sun. Of course, if you can, it's extraordinary. But you can carry that sunlight around you and within you anytime. And that's where we do tune into the chakras a bit, right? One of the practices that I learned from one of the shamans that I studied with at a very young age is really hooking into the energy of the sun. And so especially when you're going to be around a lot of people, you would, and I know you love breath work.
Yes, yeah.
So you would imagine a hook right below your belly button, and you would send this hook like a golden rod and hook it up to the sun. And then visualize yourself breathing through that hook or through your third eye or through your crown chakra, whatever feels good to you, and start bathing yourself in that sunlight. And you carry that protection of light with you wherever you go. You know, and then, so there's that part. You cloak yourself, you surround
I like that
yourself.
because when I do breath work, I tell them to breathe, and when they're breathing in, imagine that golden light.
Yes.
Right? And so that could really resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yes.
and a lot of people love the golden light. So now some people are like, okay, well, where do I get the golden light? Right? So we can use the sun.
The sun.
Because
I like
everyone has
that.
seen the sun at some point in time. So there's that, right? We can cloak ourselves. We can say a prayer. We can use mantras, you know, and the thing here is that there's no one way. It's finding something that helps you feel anchored and grounded and protected. And it's okay if it's a visualization. It's okay if it's a mantra. It's okay if it's a prayer. It's okay if it's a piece of jewelry that you put on and you say, okay, when I put this on, I know that I'm protected. It's your intention on the jewelry. It's your intention on the sacred object. It's your intention on everything. And it's actually the same thing with the supplements you use and the technology that you use. It's going to work far better if you set your intention to it. And then if you are in these situations and you do feel drained, this is where it's good to have some tools now. Now, how do I clear that energy out?
Yes, I realized that a few times, but after I'm done breath work, I've picked up, you know, some
Yes.
energy. And so I really have to, I had my friend who's a sound healer. She had done all this energy work on me and I felt so much better. But learning to do that myself is very important.
It's very important to have these tools. Like, for example, I'm going to give a kind of a dark example, but most people have been to a funeral. Okay? You go to a funeral, it's a sad situation most of the time. And something like that, I would tell people, definitely go do some clearing after that. You know, everybody views this transition of life differently, but most people view it as something very somber. And so that's the extreme. But it could be that you're at an event where there was just some weird energy, right?
Yes.
And so some of the things that always help is tapping. Tapping is extraordinary. It's so easy. You can do it anywhere. You can go to the bathroom, do tapping. Not just tapping, also dusting off, you know, dusting yourself off all the way down to the ground. And again, it's the intention of saying, there's that energy. I feel icky. Let me clear that out. Clapping is amazing. Stomping your feet. Dancing, which is my favorite one.
Dancing, my favorite too.
Yes, and jumping. And when you're jumping, you're really helping your lymphatic system. So you will instantly feel the shift. I think the one that people say they feel the biggest shift is jumping. Just anywhere.
That's why I bought a small little trampoline.
Yes.
For us to use at home. I have my kids on there all the time, and I go too.
And you can do the jumping anywhere.
Yes.
Right. And actually for bone density, jumping is extraordinary. Okay. So especially if you do it on a harder surface.
Okay, good to know.
So these are just easy, simple tools that you can use anytime. But what I want to make sure people know is that all of the power of every tool, every supplement, every device is going to work far better with your own intention on it, with your own thought process on it. For example, you know that some people pray over their food and they bless their food. Well, how about you bless your red light therapy? How about you bless your supplements before you take it? Again, those are those intraday resets. So everything that we do throughout the day gives us an opportunity to reset our energy, to anchor back to what our true purpose for blessing the world is, because we're all here to give something, to plant some seeds that are going to make someone's life just a little bit better. And so if we take every time we eat as an opportunity to anchor back, sometimes it's every time you walk in your car, if you drive a lot. Okay, every time I open the door of my car, I'm going to remember what my intention is for today, or who I am here to serve, or that I'm extremely blessed that I got to live this one extra day. If you are in an office, every time someone walks through your door that you're there to serve, give them a silent blessing and remember how blessed we both are to be having this experience together. So it's really about having these, just like the, exercise snacks are the big thing now, which are lifesavers, because not everyone can set out the time to go do a full gym workout session. Let's have blessing snacks. Let's have thought optimization snacks. Let's have energy optimization snacks throughout the day. And doing these little things really start to shift little by little, gently, lovingly, sweetly, with kindness and with true compassion for ourselves and for others. And by the way, the more compassion you have for yourself, the kinder you are to yourself, the more you can have that compassion for others when you see their reactions in life and their triggers. You can say, I understand, I've been there.
Yes. I love that you use the word compassion, because when I was talking about when I feel the energies and it's so hard for me to be around it, I started to shift. I think my word has been now more compassion, like sit in the compassion to where they're at in their journey. And that's been helping me. And it's true now that I'm more self-aware, I can go around and have more compassion to where people are at in their lives instead of judgment. And that alone shifts how I understand where people are at, and I leave the judgment alone, because I do have so much empathy and compassion. And there's, where I'm at now is fantastic. I feel great. There's still always so much growth for me, and I love learning. And that's why I love having guests like you, because I learn so much, and that incorporate for me and my family. But I know for the guests listening, this will plant so many seeds where you are planting seeds of light. So much, how they can incorporate light just through their thoughts. And this is not another biohacking, $10,000 equipment. You can do this, and it spreads globally, and it's so important. I talk about this in my book about, tell my kids to bless their food beforehand, because that could create more light. Because unfortunately, the food we have now from the grocery store the light is depleted, right? We don't have our own garden, and we don't have that anymore. So how can we bring in more light to the food we're eating? Let's bless it. And so I just love how you brought that up, and how people can bring in those blessings every day, a little bit more light, and also blending the science and blessing their medication. If they're told they have to take this medication and there's a bit of fear, just bless it.
That's so important. Right? Yes, because some people have actually, to their detriment, avoided certain protocols, including medication, because they were terrified of it. But I want people to remember that all medicine is sacred medicine. And whoever created that prescription that supplement, that oxygen therapy, their intention was to save somebody's life. Their intention was to help humanity heal. And so if we are in a position where actual prescription medication is needed and there's fear, we can shift that, think of it. Like, for example, I tell people, you have to tell yourself, no, the side effects don't apply to me. What do you have to lose by telling yourself that the side effects are not going to apply to you and that you're just going to get all the benefits? So you talk to the medicine, you say, thank you, universe, and to whoever had the sacred intention of using this for someone's true healing. And I know that only the good will come from this. My cells are going to receive this. My cells are going to heal from this. And I'm going to receive all the blessing, and this is temporary. I will not have to take it for the rest of my life, but I will use what I have to use to optimize my physical body because I love my physical body so much. I'm so grateful to it that I'm going to take great care of it because this one is the one that's going to carry me through this entire life. And so I owe it to this sacred vessel to do everything I can. And even, talk to your body, be kind to your body. Say, sweetheart, we're going to take this for now. We're working on this, and this is going to be really good for you. This is going to be so good for you. And we're going to keep getting better, and we'll continue to adjust and shift just like you would to your precious child. We need to do that to ourselves, to our consciousness, to our body. One of my beautiful teachers would tell us to talk to your soul. Consult with your soul, Just say, hey, beautiful soul, look, we're hanging out in this body now. What good things can we do for it? How can we take good care of this amazing body? Isn't this fun? Yeah. And so it's a relationship between our spirit and our body, scientific medicine and spiritual medicine. And this is how we bring conscious wellness into everything that we do, is by extreme reverence, extreme love and compassion for ourselves, for our physical body, and lots of gratitude to the physical body for what it's doing, and reverence for those who are here planting seeds, providing supplements, providing therapies, providing new protocols and strategies on how we can optimize these extraordinary vessels that we get to navigate this precious life in.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I just love hearing you talk and explain because it speaks to my soul. Because I truly feel when I speak to my body, to my soul, and ask what does it need, sometimes it'll tell me. It will tell me.
Of course.
And that's why I want to guide people to start listening, start becoming their own health advocate again, and remembering their intuition. Their body knows to speak to their bodies, but also blend the science. If you need, blend the science that's there, that was created. But really connect with your soul. So, Lea, thank you so much. I mean, I think I could listen to you speak for another hour, but unfortunately today, this is all the time we have together. But if anyone wants to, work with you or find you, because I know I love all your posts. It's always so positive and it does shift your mindset. So how can people find you?
Thank you, Melissa. It's my greatest pleasure to spend this time with you, and I want to thank you for the sacred work that you do and the blessing work you do in this life as well. And people can find me on my website, lealovio.com, or on Instagram, and that's where I list the next events that I will be attending or speaking at. And I'm always there, to help people I mean that from my heart, reach out, DM me, always happy to help in any way possible.
Love that. So for today, if this episode really resonated with you, spoke to you, really started to shift how you think or started to observe your thoughts, please watch it one more time because I think there was so much that was shared today that even watching it a second time to really grasp the concept that Lea shared so that it could really stick, but also share it with those that you love. Let's spread those seeds globally, that light globally, so we can shift those thoughts that are corrupting so many minds right now that I know there's too much of a rise in suicide, too much of a rise in depression, especially in young kids as well. Now, if we can even bring this to schools and teach kids to be mindful of that little bully inside. I know this so personally because I see it in my kids. So it starts with you. With you, just that self-love, self-observation. Thank you for listening today.